is what it's actually called. So let's start with like what kind of questions. I can share my screen and put up the syllabus. Do you need me to do that, or?
I have mine printed off, so I have it already. But I don't know about everybody else.
Okay, I will. Let me see if I can. Let me try to minimize some of the stuff behind me. So let's see.
I'm going to turn my camera off. I'm eating. I don't want to be rude, but I'll still be here.
Yes, go eat.
Okay. Hey, Sonia.
Okay, can you see my syllabus or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let me try to, okay. So basically kind of what it says is, you know, again, you could do it individual or group. It's within your area of interest, right? So you guys have already kind of gotten into your areas. And this is going to be an assignment that's going to basically put everything that you've done this semester all in one place. It doesn't have to be in any specific format. Obviously, I use PowerPoint a lot. I think PowerPoint's probably one of the easiest, but however you want to do it, right? So if you want to add in some of your own personal journal, you can add that in there if you would like to, but you don't have to because this is something you're going to share. We're going to put on the assignments where other people can see it. If you want to put in maybe some of the stuff that we've already kind of done in class on some of those like small group discussions or our group discussions from the discussion board. It could be part of your annotated bibliography. But the other thing is, what I want you to kind of do is add other things that you may have seen about this, whether it's a program that you heard about, or there was a video on YouTube that talked about this program in wherever, Washington State, that said, hey, we use this with this population, right? So I'm going to pick the one that I was just reading about, which is the juvenile justice. So maybe there's some program in Washington State that's up and new and coming, and it's doing all of these wonderful things, right? That's the kind of thing that would come into this portfolio. Maybe it's, you know, sometimes I try to throw some of those YouTube videos on there, which, you know, about the different prison systems or things like that. All of that, anything you find that may be of interest, it doesn't matter what format. It doesn't always have to be scholarly stuff. In this, I just want you to have a good base of resources for your specific population. So, okay, let me stop sharing because I can't see your faces when I share. Okay. And I know somebody has their camera off because they were eating, which is, I think it was Stephanie, which is completely fine. So what kind of questions do you have from that?
Okay, so like for my group, we're doing the juvenile offenders.
Mm-hmm.
So do we just pick one specific topic? We're going to do the assignment as a group, but do we pick one specific topic and then break it up into sections and discuss it? Or I guess that's what I'm not understanding.
So it could be that specific, or you could just say, we're going to talk about juvenile offenders, and one person could talk about mental health.
Okay.
And one person can talk about different treatment programs or different, because I actually just was reading your stuff, and I just was sending you all your comments because I'm a little late getting that stuff done. So when I think about juvenile offenders, I talked in there about how my very first job in social work, didn't have my degree yet, was as a psych tech in a inpatient, like a residential program for kids. And oftentimes they will come to us, to this program, instead of going and getting incarcerated. And I remember thinking back in the 90s, which I aged myself right there. Whoopsie. I mean, 2000s. No, I'm just kidding. I remember thinking in the 90s, this makes so much more sense. Why are we sending children to a prison? Send them somewhere and get them treatment. Most of the children that I worked with had a huge, huge history of, you know, family violence, community violence, just, you know, all sorts of stuff. And this is years ago. Why has it not gotten any better? Why are we actually getting worse and having school to prison pipelines instead of catching these things early and doing some early intervention. So for me, with your group, I would say, are there programs that are saying, you know what, this isn't okay? I think it was it Philadelphia? Was that one of the articles that I was reading? I think it was Philadelphia that you all talked about. And they were doing something different, right? They were taking more preventative steps in the school system so that they didn't do the school to prison pipeline, right? So those are the kind of things, maybe someone finds, newer programs, or it doesn't always have to be, like I said, from a scholarly journal. Maybe you just Google juvenile justice programs or juvenile offender programs, right? And just start throwing all that stuff in. You can throw it into a PowerPoint, however you want to do it, and say, here's all the resources that we found, right? And here are the things that we notice with children who are juvenile offenders, right?
Okay.
The white children are being treated very, very differently, and they're probably going to diversion programs, whereas children of color are probably not. And then why isn't that happening, right? So
we can do just a PowerPoint.
Yeah, make it easy. I'm not trying to make this harder than it is. Let's make it easy. Let's do a PowerPoint. Unless you don't like PowerPoint, then you can do whatever you want. Yeah, and just kind of start throwing some stuff, and you can, break it up into whatever categories you all want to, but maybe you just want to focus on one area. Maybe you just want to focus on mental health and juvenile justice. Then that's all you guys can cover. Perfect. Just throw some information on there and say, these are the resources that we found, or here are the things that we've noticed. Because some of the articles where different states have different programs.
Mm-hmm.
And then why are some states treating their juveniles better than other states, right? Why are some states putting money into their kids and some aren't, right? Because I'm home in Florida now. So back when I worked in Florida, we were somewhere in the 40s out of the 50 states for how we treated our children. Wow. In terms of school, in terms of Medicaid, in terms of medical, in terms of mental health, in terms of juvenile, we were somewhere in the 40s. Wow. So 40 something states were better than us in terms of how they treated their children. We tried to make some turnaround and try to claw our way out of those spaces. So, anything that looks interesting to you, because this is really, in my mind, I view this as a resource for you to have later on when you go to work. Whether it's with that population or not, at least you will have just this really good resource base of something, right? So let's say you don't even do that. You go to work in mental health, but then you have a client that walks in and is like, my child's a juvenile offender and da-da-da-da. The social worker is going to be like, hold on, I've got something. Let's talk about this program for your child, right? Or something like that. So, maybe even look into what North Carolina specifically has in terms of treatment centers for children. Do they have ones that are more diversion based? Is it more in a bigger city? Like, would we have it up in Raleigh, but maybe not in Pembroke? Would we have it in Charlotte, but not in Fayetteville? Like that kind of stuff. Maybe interesting to kind of look at.
So,
I think I have a better idea of what you want now.
Yeah.
I think I was overthinking it.
Yeah, I want you to, I want y'all to bring this down. This is, I think in some ways it's about, some of this is all theory, right? And we take these theories in class, but then I want to say, how do we turn it into practice? How do we turn this into, there's a juvenile sitting across from you, and how are we going to manage that child? And what are we going to focus on, right? So one of the articles, I think it was in your group, that talked about really good assessments and really good needs assessments. And so maybe find a really great needs assessment that's specific for juveniles or something. So I want you to go down whatever rabbit trail of interests you. So if you say part of my group is I'm going to look at needs assessments and what kind of tools are we using to really get a good idea of what these children need.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Don't make it hard. This is actually easy. Cool. Stephanie, did you have something too? Because I
know. It's like both of us.
I saw you both at the same time, and I was like, okay.
Well, no, you answered, because that was the one thing. I'm definitely much more of a product person than a process person. So I was like, okay, I need to understand what the end needs to be. And basically what I'm understanding is like, it's a resource guide for us the, you know, kind of whatever makes us happy, we put it in there, whatever format. You just want
Yep.
us to gather information, you know, on our said topic and
Yeah.
let you know that we found some information and this is what we found and we want to share with you for us,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and think about it too. I mean, so you might produce something that all of a sudden one of your classmates might be like, you know what? That could cross over into something that I want to do too. I'm going to
Mhm.
grab her resource and keep that as well. Right?
Okay.
Because that's one of the things about social workers. We're always going to have these resources kind of at, you know, we're kind of one of those. We kind of like to refer and do all of that. Well, sometimes we don't know what we don't know, but
Yeah.
sometimes our peers are like, hey, did you ever hear about this? And you're like,
Okay.
wow, that's fantastic. Right.
Okay.
So even something like, you know, can people who are immigrants who don't have a green card, can they go get food from a food bank?
Okay.
Usually you need a driver's license. So
Mhm.
that may be a resource of like, hey, there's this food bank and they don't ask for anything.
Okay.
Right. And that may just be that resource that you have later on that you may not need right now, but you might need when you're in practice
Okay.
in the next couple of years. Yeah, this is about a resource for you. I want this to be something that you have in your back pocket. I think about when I was in school, I literally would print out stuff and I would keep it in binders and I would have different binders for different things. Now, of course, everything is digital and I can save it on my computer. But back in the day, I had like an entire bookshelf full of binders of different things, you know, because I worked with little ones. So ages and stages questionnaires. I loved those to try to see where they were developmentally. And then like, you know, regular child development and, you know, the different things like that. I would have it all printed out. That way I could go resource and pull that when I had a child in front of me. And I was like, I would think, wow, I don't know if they're